Everyone, this is Lori from My File Addiction. Today I'm going to show you guys how to turn this particular object into a rhinestone design. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we are going to make a copy of the original design. I always like to keep the original design off to the side so that you can use it later on if you want to put it behind your design for your cleanup. When you apply your rhinestones to a particular to your design, it makes the original design kind of go away. So this way, if you make a copy of your original design, you can use it as a guide to place behind your stones in order to do cleanup if that's what you need to do. Okay, but so I'm going to show you two ways to make this design. The first way is we're going to let Silhouette kind of do it for us, and I'm going to show you using the rhinestone feature the results that you're going to get, and then I'm going to show you a way that I personally would do it, and it's taking more control over the way you want the design to look. Okay, instead of letting the program place the stones, we are going to be specific on how we want the stones placed, where we want them placed, and you're going to see that it's going to give you a much nicer look. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is, basically this was an image I took off of the internet, and we need to, in order to apply our stones, we need to turn this into what they call a vector object. And a vector object is one that can either be cut from heat transfer vinyl, or a vector object is also one that would be recognized to place stones around the outer edge or fill in the area with the stones. It's what the Silhouette program is going to recognize. Okay, so you cannot just stone a JPEG or a PNG file or anything like that. It has to be a vector object. So basically we have to run it through the trace program. So up here to the upper right hand corner, also I want to let you know that I am using the business edition. So I have all the features that are the Silhouette program offers. If you have a lower version, which I think they have a designer edition or a designer plus edition, I am not 100% sure if all of the features that I am going to talk about today in this video are included with those programs. But so I just want to kind of let you know that in advance, that way in case there's something that I'm showing you to do and it's not available in that program, you're going to have to upgrade to the business edition in order to do the same exact steps that I'm doing. Also, I do want to tell you, when you are learning how to do different things that I'm going to show you, pause the video, open up your Silhouette program, try to do them along with watching the video. I find that people, and I've done this myself, you watch a video and you can't remember the same exact steps, or you think it's a certain way and you're not getting the right results. Well, if you are not following the exact steps and you've forgotten something, you could get completely different results. So pausing it and doing exactly as you're seeing things will help you to learn the process, instead of trying to remember everything that was done in a video. I know my videos are sometimes on the lengthy side, only because I like to explain why things are done, maybe show you if you did it a different way, you might get different results. So I'm not a person that just says, do this, do that, click this, click that, and that's all you need to do. I enjoy kind of teaching, so unfortunately my videos might be a little on the longer side. But if you pause them and you do the steps along the way, I can guarantee you're going to learn and you're going to retain the information a little bit more than just trying to remember everything or something I mentioned 20 minutes ago, that kind of thing. So you maybe, run through the video once to view it, and then maybe a second time, and kind of stop, pause, do what I'm doing, and then that way you can see exactly, how everything is put together. So, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to trace this image. We're going to turn it to a vector object. So here's your trace panel over here. So it's going to ask you to select the trace area. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm basically I'm holding down my left click button, and I am selecting and dragging a square around all the places that I want to trace, okay? So I'm going to try to crop out some of the white background, but you want to make sure that you're tracing everything that should be traced. If you run that edge right across these, these little bars here, it's going to cut them kind of off. So I have solid filled checked because I want my vector object to come out to be solid filled, kind of like this one. I don't mess with this threshold. Again, I do not use this program every day to create my designs, but I can apply what I learn in my other programs, and I can apply it to other design programs and figure things out. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So I am just going to select this trace option here, and this allows you to, this is your original image, okay, so I'm going to just delete that, and we are left with this, okay, and I thought if I put solid filled it would come out as a solid filled design, but evidently it's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my color palette here, and I'm just going to change it to a color. Let's make it blue, okay? I don't want to use black because sometimes the boxes that go around the circles to show that it's selected are black, so it doesn't allow you to see sometimes those details. So I'm going to change it to just a random color here. I like to color in to make my designs very colorful, and it's not that the final design is going to be very colorful, but different sections, if you create them in different colors, you can select by color, and I'll show you how to do that. That will allow you to select a group of circles specific to one area if you change that group of circles to a different color. Okay, so I kind of like to do that. It gives me more control over selecting things that I might want to move around, or if I want to duplicate it, or if I want to mirror it or something like that, and it allows me, instead of having to go in and select every individual circle or anything like that. So it's just a quicker way, and sometimes I never know if I'm gonna go back to a section and make any changes, so it's nice to be able to do that and go back to those specific color stones and make those changes. So okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the results you're going to get if you let the Silhouette program take over and fill these stones in for you. Okay, right now our object is approximately 9.5 inches wide by 9.5 inches tall. So I'm just going to kind of keep it at that size. And so the first thing we're going to do is, if you don't have a copy, which I've already made a copy, this is another vector copier. If you don't already have a copy of this, what I would suggest that you do is you duplicate and make another copy of this design, this particular vector object, because like I said, it goes away. Okay, so to make a quick copy, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can hold down your Alt key, or you're going to select, you're going to select the object first, then you'll hold down your Alt key, and you'll see it kind of, the cursor kind of turns into, I think it's a little plus sign. And if you hold down your left click and you drag, you can easily make a copy that way. Okay, or you could do the copy paste and those functions, or you could right click and you can do your copy paste here, or you can hit duplicate and it'll duplicate a copy for you that way too. Okay, so but right now I know that this is a vector one, so I've already made my copy. So I'm just gonna throw this over here out of the way. So these are a copy of my original and a copy of the vector object. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open up our rhinestone panel. The rhinestone feature is only available on the Designer Edition, Designer Plus, and the Business Edition. Your free basic program does not have a rhinestone panel in it. Okay, so the rhinestone panel is right here. We're going to open that up, and I'm going to take away my trace panel. I don't need that anymore. I'll leave this up for right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the vector object. I'm going to select an SS10 stone, and then these are 3 different fill options. Okay, so you're going to be choosing one of these. The next thing you want, actually before you choose your fill option, you're going to want to go down to your spacing. Silhouette spacing defaults to 0.039 inches. To me, that's too large of a space between stones. I think they've kind of overcompensated on the spacing. So this should be something that you should try to remember to override. And unfortunately, every time you open up your program, you're going to have to do this. I wish there was a way in the preference panel to change that spacing permanently, but unfortunately, that's not anything that they offer at this moment. So if you are unsure of how tight of a spacing you can get, you may want to do some test cuts. I'll do a video on how you can do different test cuts on different spacing, but basically all you're going to do is create a square, a circle, or something that's filled with a bunch of different stones, and try it with using different spacing. And then what you want to do is maybe line those up. You're going to have, maybe, I don't know, try maybe 8 different types of spacings, and line those all, cut them on your template material, see which ones, see your threshold for when your template material starts to tear. Your goal is to get those stones as close together as possible. You do not, when you see too much of the shirt popping through in between your stones, it takes away from your design. And especially if you put it on light colored shirts. If you put even if you're using dark colored stones, and you put it on a white shirt and you have this spacing between it, it mutes your design. It makes it harder to identify the objects or different details in the design. It can make it harder to read wording. You want it to look, that's why when you see if you were to put a rhinestone design and a design, the same exact design, but it was to be cut from vinyl, you would see that the vinyl design is so much clearer. It's because it's one solid piece. But the rhinestone designs, we have to leave spacing in order to cut the template. So the details of the rhinestone design won't be as clear as a vinyl version unless you can do it using an automated stone setting machine, and you can place those stones right next to each other. But if you're cutting a template, you have to leave a certain amount of space so that your template doesn't tear when you weed out all the circles. So your goal is to find your threshold on how close you can get those stones. When I make designs for my customers, I used to make them at point zero, oh gosh, what was it? Maybe about 0.02 to maybe 0.18. I should say 0.18 to 0.02. I'm sorry, 0.018 to 0.02. It was basically, I design in millimeters, so I'm trying to do the math and see what it would be. Basically, my spacing would be a half of a millimeter. But nowadays, the template material is a lot thinner than it used to be when I created rhinestone transfers. So I've upped that a little bit. So now I use a spacing of 0.025 inches, which is equivalent to about 0.6 millimeters. So I have kind of upped that a little bit to take into consideration the thinner material. So you can try that, start with that. If you find that that is your material's tearing, which I don't hear too many people complain when they buy my files that the holes are too close together. But you can try to up that a little bit. Go to 0.026, 0.027, 0.028. But 0.039 is a lot larger than, a lot more spacing than I would say that you need, okay? So anyways, so make sure that you kind of remember to change that spacing anyways. Okay, so let's get kind of back on track here. So I'm going to change this to 0.025, okay? And the first option here is just to outline the design, okay? So as you can see, you kind of get a pretty good, I would say this is near perfect, if that's the look that you were going for, just to have the design outline. Now the customer that asked me to make this design wanted a filled in design, okay? So that would be your next two options here. You have what they call, this is a linear fill, which means you will just get rows and rows and rows of horizontal stones, okay? That's how they're going to be laid, okay? A lot of people like to use this fill because it tends to fill the inside of the design pretty well for certain types of designs. But when it comes to a design that has a rounded edge, I particularly would not use this fill for those types of designs. A lot of people use them like to fill in, say, a heart. But what happens is the top of the heart that has the arched bump, you basically get a flat edge. And if you look at the natural curve of a heart, it has a natural hump. Now when you're using this linear fill, you're getting flat edges. And yes, the inside fill of that heart looks symmetrical and everything looks filled in nice, but you don't see flat hearts. So when people use this fill for objects that have curved parts, to me you're not doing your customers any justice on trying to create these designs the fastest way possible, and using just this, this fill because it gave you a nice fill on the inside. You have to look at that and say, if anything, if your eyes are drawn to any part of that design that doesn't look right, then chances are you need to spend some time to kind of clean that up. So that's just things that we kind of learn along the way. Rhinestone files are not all about how quick you can create a rhinestone file. It's not. These programs are here to get us started, but they visually can't see what we can see. Okay, so it's up to us sometimes to take it and clean it up afterwards. So if you use that linear fill, then you need to maybe start moving some of those circles to create that normal shape, and move circles around to get back to what that shape is supposed to look like if it were to follow the outside curve of that. And what I mean by the outside curve is like here, you can kind of see it. See, it's followed the curve of this arch right here. So you want your outside lines to look as nice as your inside fill. Okay. So our next fill option. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and now you can see this is what we get. And see what I'm talking about? You've lost your curves. You've got them a little bit up here. Okay. So I would say that if I were to manually do these, I would probably end up making my curve like that. You want 2 on the top and then the 3 rows, and then the rest of them are straight. So the problem with this is all this is run together. These particular lines, even though visually when we looked at this, all these lines look the same, okay, but in actuality these lines must have been a tad bit thinner, because we got to remember, somebody is making this design and they don't care if this line or this line are the same exact size, but our computer will look at that line and this line and say they're 2 different sizes, so the same amount of stones can't fill both sizes, both of those lines. So that's why it put 2 here and now 3 here. Okay, so that's a problem also. And like I said, and also if we zoom in here a little bit, we can see there's tighter spacing here, but again now we're back to having large spacing between here, only because the program now is filling on the outside line, on both outside lines, and then it's placing 1 stone down the middle. So it's basically, it's not saying, oh well, those are exactly evenly spaced. So it's just basically drawing a straight, adding a straight row of circles right down the center. So now we have to just fill in that gap. Okay, we want it to look pleasing to the eye. We want less space, and we want everything to look the same. So especially because all 4 of these look exactly the same, but they don't look exactly the same when the computer or programs decide to place all those circles. Okay, so I don't know if I can now, since I clicked off of this, I don't know if I can go back into that rhinestone panel or not. Let's try it and see. So now if I change to this radial fill, okay, so it did allow me to. So now it looks a little bit better, but now see, what you can see is what it's tried to do. Instead of doing a straight line like it did in the previous version, now it's just kind of trying to zigzag and kind of fill in those spaces as much as they possibly can. I still think that all of these are too close together. You want that definition, and to me, if you were to zoom out and see this on somebody's shirt, they all look like they're together too much, okay? So you don't want that. We want the definition between each one of these, I don't know what they're called, but each one of these lines that come off of the circle, okay? So really, I would not take the results probably for any of these options that the silhouette program gave me. Okay, so when that happens, now what I do is I take control and I will build my own design. Okay, so we're going to put this one off to the side because this was probably the one with the best results if we were looking for a filled-in design. Okay, so I'm going to compare it to the one, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to compare it to the one that I am going to build myself. Okay, so what I mean by when I build myself is I look at a design. Let me copy this here. And you don't necessarily have to start with a vector object. I work a lot from JPEGs when I build my own designs, okay? Because I am either inserting my own shapes or I'm doing my own lines and creating my own lines. So sometimes I don't really necessarily have to go through the whole tracing process or whatever. Okay, so what I do is I'm looking at this design and I'm saying, okay, what shapes do I see? So basically this it's pretty easy. I see a circle, okay? Immediately the center is a circle. Okay, so that circle now, I would say it's not as thick as these lines here. So I would say the circle would be 2 rows of stones thick. So as you can kind of see, look at this, what the silhouette program did. It did 1 circle, okay? So, and it left a whole lot of gaps and all that kind of stuff in here. So we're going to take control and we're going to make this a circle that has 2 rows of circles going around. Okay, it's going to be 2 rows of stones thick. Now these, the lines that are coming off of the circle are a little bit thicker. So I would say we're going to use 3 rows of stones for those. Okay, if you're unsure about how thick to make things, 2 things you could do. You could go in and drop a freehand stone and drop 1 circle, or sometimes what I like to do is just drop a circle, and you got to make it the size that you want it. So we're going to make it 0.13 inches, which is an SS10 stone size. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this circle and we're going to place it in different parts of our design to see how many objects we think we can get into a certain area, okay? So I'm going to try 3 here. So I'm going to go 1, and you have to eyeball your spacing here. Zooming in also is your friend because it helps you get better control over where that circle is, how much spacing is going to be there, you know, stuff like that. So zoom in. I must have a snap. I don't want a snap. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to go over to here. And I don't want snap to guide. I'm not going to enable smart snapping either. So I want to freely be able to move that circle around. So that was my page setup. I went into the second option and I unchecked this, anything to do with snapping. Okay, so if you have that problem, you can do that. Okay, so basically I'm just gonna kind of eyeball this, and I'm gonna hold down my Alt key, and that's how I'm going to duplicate. Okay, so basically, roughly within this area, I could easily fit 3. Remember when the silhouette program laid the fill? And basically what it did is it laid it on the outside lines. It's always going to lay your stones on the outside lines, okay? And then remember it filled one in the middle. So this is the gap that the silhouette program created. This is how they filled it. This is what we're going to do, okay? You can see it's closed in, but you can see, and in our other one, it you can see that everything kind of was morphed together too. Remember how I said that, you know, it looks like the lines are too close together? If we go back out to this version here, right here, by doing what we're doing manually here, it's going to create, by doing it like this, it's going to create more spaces between each one. So it's going to create now this separation and make those lines coming out more defined. So it's going to visually look better, okay, than all jumbled together. Okay, so and then what we can do is we can kind of say, okay, we'll double check this. Okay, I should be able to get 2 rows of stones in there nicely. And remember, you know, we're not going to have the customer take this design and put it behind our finished file and say, oh, did they follow exactly that pattern? We can make changes, slight changes, to make the design look more visually appealing, and nobody will ever know, okay? So remember that. So by taking control and building your own design allows you to make those tweaks so that the finished design is visually what we are looking for, not what the silhouette program says, okay, you started with this design, this is what it's going to look like when you apply the stones. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I am just going to delete everything but one circle here. I don't even know if I need that, but let's see. Okay, to zoom in and out, I don't like this program. I have to hold the Alt key down, and it just, I don't know. Maybe there's an easier way, but like I said, I do not design in this program, so excuse me if I fumble around a little bit, only because I'm trying to apply what I know in my other program to this particular program. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to create another circle here, because right now I see this circle. So now I'm going to first start out by making this circle. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm roughly going to start, and I'm going to make that circle about the same size as the inside line here, because I know I want to use 2 rows of stones. Okay, so there's basically my first circle. Then I'm going to go into my, let's see what panel, my offset panel, which is the star over here with the outline around it. Click on that. You have an offset and you have an internal offset. The offset will create an offset, another offset of the outline of the around the outside of the object, and the internal one will do it on the inside of the object. Okay, so if I would have made my circle bigger, I could have done an internal offset and made a smaller circle on the inside of my larger circle, but I'm starting with the smaller circle, so I want to create a second larger circle. Okay, so I am going to select offset. Now our distance. The distance is going to be the size of your stone, which is 0.13 inches for an SS10, plus the size of your spacing. So if I use 0.025 for my spacing, and I use 0.13 for my stone size, my distance will be 0.155. Stone size plus spacing. I'm doing a circle, so I want to keep a rounded corner. If you were doing something where you wanted to keep the edge squared, you would do this, but if you took a square and you wanted a softer corner, you would check to have it more rounded, okay? But so those are your two options. Right now I'm sticking with the rounded edge, okay? And then I'm going to hit apply. And as you can see, this black line is my second circle, okay? So now basically I have two circles. So I'm going to go to I'm going to select both of those. Now, another thing you're going to want to make sure that you have checked is you can go to your preference panel by clicking on the little gear in your right hand corner, or go to edit and preferences, okay? Either way will get you this screen right here. If we go into tools, let me see here. Two things you are going to want to select here is, the first one is when drag selecting, you want to have select shapes enclosed by drag box. I believe it defaults to select shapes touching drag box. You don't want the touching, because as you are selecting, because my cursor would be touching other objects in my on my screen, it's going to select them also. I want to just select these two. So instead of, manually selecting them, you can drag select, but you have more control over what you're selecting if you do it when it is the shapes enclosed in the box. So that means the shapes have to completely be enclosed in that drag selection in order to be selected. So the next one you are going to want to do is also, let me see here, when pasting an object, you want the new shape becomes selected. Okay, so if that's not already defaulted to that, or if that's not selected, make sure you select that. Okay, so those are two things that you want to make sure that you have selected. We're going to select OK. Okay, so I am going to select both of those. I'm going to go to my rhinestone panel, and I'm going to make sure I have an SS10 selected. My spacing is 0.025, and because I'm not doing a fill, I can just do the outside one here, and I have both of those lines are filled. Okay, so this particular one, because it was just an outline line, we can go in and just, actually, you know what, I can select both of those, and I'm going to change those both to green. Okay, another thing I like to do in this program, because when you move objects that have a lot of individual circles, it kind of lags. It makes the program lag a little bit. So, and this particular area, I want these circles, these two rows of circles, to stay together. Okay, that way if I accidentally touch one, I can't move it out of place or whatever. So I like to group my certain parts of the design when I'm making it. I do this in my other program that I design in also. Keeps things together. You're not like I said, you're not accidentally moving things around. You can always ungroup them, or I can select just one circle. It's gonna, select that whole area, and again, I can move it around. Okay, so you can select. You can do it either right click, and you can select your, let's say, group option here. You can go into object and you can select group here, or you can do shortcut keys, which is Control G. I like to do I like to do shortcut keys because they're just so much faster. Also, just real quick here, if you go under help and you go, there's a user manual. You go to the very last page of the user manual. You can print this page, and what I have done is I highlight all the shortcut keys that I would use the most. And I have that printed out in front of me, and it allows me to quickly look, okay, I want to group, I can do Control G. If I want to ungroup, I can do Control Shift G. If I want to duplicate something, I can do Control D. So that allows you to learn these, and then before you know it, you won't even have to use this sheet anymore. So I'm not sure if any of you guys knew that or not, but this is a handy tool to have while you're learning. Okay, so I'm going to click out of that. Let's go back into the Silhouette program. Okay, so now this is one object. Okay, so now I can just move it around or do whatever I want with it. Okay, so the next thing now, so we've finished our circle. Okay, so the next thing is now, if you look at this design, all four sides of this are exactly the same. And quite frankly, this line coming off and this line coming off are basically, it's the same pattern. It's just these are flipped around, okay? So basically, we can, instead of concentrating on this whole design and looking at it, I can concentrate on building just these two lines, and from those two lines, I can fill in the rest of this design, okay? I like to break designs down, and I like to do as little designing as possible. So if you can design one area and you can use that in another area, you are saving so much time, and everything will start looking identical, okay? Because if this particular design, if whoever created it, if this line over here was a tad bit thinner than this line over here, then the program's going to make it that way, okay? So you could end up with all four sides that visually look the same. They could be filled in all different because they are not exactly the same width, okay? The computer looks at the width. They don't say, oh, these are supposed to all look the same, okay? So, but when we take control over designing, we can make them all look exactly the same. And I get people that ask me that question all the time. How do you get your lines so perfect? How do you get that looking so clean? It's because what I'm going to show you doing is how I approach making a lot of my designs, okay? I don't let it tell me what to do. I tell it what to do. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to take my circle that I set aside here. And I am going to take this circle and I'm going to position it right about here. Okay? So a little bit of spacing here, but I know if we put it too close, I mean, I guess I could do, I like to try to kind of line up. Let's try this. Let's do this. I like to try to line up some of the lines against circles, okay? So this one, if I started here, when circles are on an angle, if I were to run this across, these two lines here going across, the circles would end up kind of colliding. As the circles get straighter and more of a straight line, a vertical line or a horizontal line, then you can see I'm going to do this line completely different than I do this line, and I'll show you exactly, you know, what will happen. But okay, so let's try this. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to look, we know our spacing we did here was 0.25. Okay, so this is about the spacing that we are going to eyeball. Okay, so see, when you start zooming in, you get more better control over visually seeing, you know, where things can be placed. So I'm going to try to stay on the same particular line, make it as straight as possible, and I'm going to put my spacing about right there. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom out so I can see the end of this line here. Now I'm going to open up my replicate panel. We are going to go into the center section here, which is the advanced replicate panel. The option we are going to work with is this particular one here, the very one at the far right. It's the custom position. This allows us to tell the program what kind of spacing we want to put in between each circle. Okay, none of the other options will allow you to do that. Now I do have to say, the other day I upgraded to the newest version of the program, which I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, okay. The newest version at the time that I upgraded to was the 4.5.180. When I did that, I did not have access to these two boxes here. It had the inches, it had the arrows, there was no box, and there was no figures in here. I could not say I wanted this to be 1 inch, 2 inch, whatever. I could use the up and down arrows, and it would adjust the spacing between the circles, but I couldn't tell what that spacing was. Okay, I contacted Silhouette. They told me to I had to do a hard reset. I had to completely erase my program, and any file or any link that had to do with the install, I had to go through and I had to dump everything and start over brand new and re-download the file. I did that, nothing. I told them that, you know, it never came back. They never replied to me. I had to go back to an older version. And the older version that I have is, I'm running a 4.4.895. That's when you know, in between there's been maybe 4, 5, 6 updates. I don't know if any of those updates have this, if it was only the newest version that didn't have it, but I just went back to what I knew had it, so I wasn't going to fool around with it. So if you do not have where this is all white and you don't see these 0.000 here or any figures, you may have to go back to another version. Contact Silhouette, let them know there's a bug, that it wasn't just me. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but whatever they told me to do, it didn't work, and they never bothered to reply to my follow-up message. So, if it is a bug in the system, hopefully there's enough people that will contact them and they'll fix it. But this is the only way I knew how to fix it, is by going back a version to a version I knew that was there. So, okay. So we are going to go here. So now the offset, there's an X offset and a Y offset. The X offset is, let me see here. Oh, okay. The X, when the number you plug in here, so we are going to use our spacing of 0.025, okay? Let me see. I just want to double check that. Nope, that's not what I want to put in there. I'm going to go back. Okay, we want to put in the 0.155. We want to put in the size of the circle plus the spacing. So forget about the 0.025. We want to put in the 0.155, which is 0.13 for the circle and plus 0.025 for the spacing. So when we put that in and we do the X offset, it will replicate, gotta select it. It will replicate a circle to the right of the circle that you just copied, okay? If you want to do it to the left of that circle, your number on the inside, and I'm just going to delete this, so I'm just going to kind of show you. Let's go up here. If you want to delete it going this way to the left, your number has to be a negative number. So you're going to type in negative 0.155 and it would go to the left, okay? The Y offset duplicates to the top or to the bottom, depending whether it's a positive number or a negative number. So in order to do that, you have to clear out and put this back to 0. Now you're going to put in a number, so 0.155 would duplicate below, okay? Or, and I'm just, my number of duplications is just 1, so that allows me to continually, because sometimes you never know how many circles you need to duplicate. So if you leave this at 1, it will always duplicate the last circle that that you just is selected, okay? That's why it was important for you to check that box in the preference panel that said for the new shape become selected, because if not, it would automatically default back to the original shape. So then you would keep duplicating, but it would keep duplicating to the same position, okay? This way it continually will duplicate onto the next available space, that kind of thing. Okay, so a positive number will duplicate it down. If you want to duplicate it going up, you would type in negative, I'm sorry, whoops, negative 0.155, and you replicate. Now that goes up. So up, down, right, left depends upon positive or negative numbers, okay? And if you've got numbers in both of these spots, so if I typed in negative 0.155, if you forgot to clear this out, this is what you're going to get. It's going to start going off into crazy angles, okay? So that's it. If you want to do straight lines, you can only put one figure at a time in here and do one row at a time. Okay, so that takes care of that. So I am going to take these and I'm going to delete those. Okay, so now I want to duplicate to the right because I want to bring this whole row. So I'm going to go back into my X offset and I'm going to change this to 0.155, and I am going to select my duplicate until I reach the end to where I want that last stone to be. So basically I'm gonna, I might do it to about there. Okay, so now my next row, take this circle, oops, I moved it over a little bit, and I'm gonna zoom in here. So I am going to select my Alt key and I'm gonna do my little wheel on my mouse, that's the word I'm looking for, and I'm going to zoom in that way, and I'm going to manually put this up here. See, because I want, if this were to come in line here, I want to maintain this kind of spacing, so I'm going to kind of do it about there. We can adjust it if we need to, and I'll show you how to do that. But that's my starting point here. So now I'm going to zoom back out here a little bit. I can probably, because I got all these panels up too, kind of hides things. But let's see, let's try this. Okay, so now I know I'm still going to do it to the right, so this is, I can leave this as is. I'm going to just keep hitting my replicate. And because this is going to be the outside curve here, I want it to extend a little bit past, okay? So my next row is going to be kind of coming in, so then I will create that curve. So the spacing here looks fine, but now see the spacing here looks like too much. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out beyond, because I'm working with a JPEG, so if I were to accidentally click right here on the JPEG on the white background, it's going to click actually the entire thing. So I don't want that. So I want to start by holding down my left click, and I want to drag my box outside of the JPEG, and now I want to start selecting all of these circles, and I'm going to, oh, you know what, I don't want all of them, I'm sorry, I just want this one row. So I'm going to go till I have selected just outside to the left of this blue circle. Okay, so now if we scroll in, we can see that all those blue circles are selected. So now, because they're all selected, I can grab them all, and then I can just kind of move it down just a little bit here. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now what I could also do, instead of placing another circle, what I could now do is take this row that's selected, hold down my Alt key, and I could move it up to here, and now that gives me my other row, and now I have that built. So I'm kind of a stickler about having things even. So to me, this and this do not look aligned. So I would select this one, hold down my Shift key, select this one. I want them to be the same lined up the same. And as you can see, this has got a space here, and this one has a little space. So that means they're not aligned. So I'm going to go to the Align tool here, which you can find on your panel on the right hand side here, or I thought it was up at the top too, but maybe not. Oh yes, it is right here. Okay, so I'm going to just bring up the panel for right now. So now I want this stone, the top stone, to be moved over and match this one. Okay, so I want it to move to the right. So I'm going to select this option here. I want everything aligned to the right. Okay, so where the flat edge is where you want things aligned. See, and it says align right when I hover over it too. So if I do that, it moves that over. Okay, but now we have a space here and our spacing is off. So what I would do is I would select this whole row and I would respace horizontally, and now it respaces all those. Okay, so now visually everything is evenly spaced here, evenly spaced here. So now we have created basically one perfect part of the design. Okay, so on to the next one. So the next one we could do a little bit differently, and we could take I would have to ungroup it. Okay, so let's do this. We can ungroup this. I want to make sure when I ungroup something, I want to make sure nothing else is color coded the same. Okay, so in this design, I've only used the green for this. Okay, so now I know if I were to want to reselect all these, I could select the color and group them back together again. Okay, so that's why I said I try to color in different colors. So see, this is a different color blue, and then this blue, because then I can select just this color blue if I want to group all of these circles. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I want to ungroup these for right now. So I'm going to hit Control Shift G, which ungroups all of these circles. So I should be able to, I didn't do it. Let's see, let's try it again. Control Shift G. It should, oh, you know what I didn't do? When I applied the stones, okay, if you don't release the stones, they are actually still in a grouped mode. Okay, so both of these lines, this line and this line, are still all of these stones are still grouped. So in order to do that, you have to hit release stones. See, and individual boxes go around the circles. So now you are taken out of the rhinestone mode basically. So I cannot change that. I can't change the fill. I can't change anything anymore. Okay, so once you know that you've got that the way you want, you have to release your stones. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to take, I'm going to see how this looks. I'm going to select these three stones, and I'm going to use my replique again, and I want to duplicate these to the right. So I'm still going to use the same exact setting that I was using before, and I am going to go like this. Okay, so now I've done that. The spacing between each one is nice. Okay, so that worked out. If I would have done it for these three, I'm going to kind of show you what would have happened. because remember I said things on an angle, you might get a little bit different results. So see how the spacing for these two rows would have been really kind of too close, okay? So I could have done it that way and then just manually selected a line, and I could have moved it up too. But I kind of wanted to show you how you can just build your lines too, okay? So you have options. You can do it this way, and then you could grab a whole row and shift things around a little bit if you wanted to. So experiment to see what ways work best for you. Sometimes taking it one row at a time is the way you can achieve things better, and sometimes grouping a bunch of objects and duplicating a bunch of objects will give you the close results. So now on this particular one, you can see the edge is not rounded like this particular edge. Okay, I'm gonna delete these here. So now we have to create this rounded edge, and by doing that we need the top and bottom circles to be aligned, and then we need the middle circle to be slightly past them. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to delete one circle here, and I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to take this circle, shift. I want this circle to be aligned with this circle, so I'm going to align it to the right, and I'm going to do that. And now I'm going to grab this entire row of circles, and you can either stop here or you could go into the first circle of the circle of the ring for the circle, and you can include that one if you wanted to. And then I'm going to hit the horizontal respacing, and as you can see, it would it respaces those. I didn't want to include this particular circle because what it would have done is taken this and shifted it over. Okay, I want this one to remain in the same position. So when you want a circle to remain in the same position, you stop at that circle when you're enclosing and you're selecting a group of circles. So the two end circles will stay in the same position. The ones in between them are the ones that readjust the spacing. Okay, so that's when you need to decide where you're going to stop and start, and you want everything in between those two end ones to shift, but the two end ones will remain the same. Okay, so now I want to change the color. I want to match this color, so I'm not sure what blue it is. I don't think it's that one. I think it might be, nope. So just so I get the right colors, you know what, I'm going to change this to orange, the top orange. Hit shift, or I'm holding my shift and then I'm clicking individually. I'm going to change those, and then I'm going to change these to orange also. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. I am done with this panel, so I'm going to delete that. I am done with this panel. I'm going to delete that, and I'm done with this panel. Okay, so that's just going to give me a little bit more space. I'm actually done rhinestoning also. Okay, so when I talked about color coding things and being able to select them, so the reason I color coded these the same is because basically, remember I said we only have to build 2 lines in this whole design. Okay, so now that we've built the 2 lines, now I'm going to start duplicating these lines and positioning them, and you're going to see me how I'm going to rebuild this design. Okay, so I'm going to go up into this color palette that's up here. and I'm going to select by color. I'm going to go to the by fill, and these two lines I colored orange, so I'm going to select that, and now you can see it's selecting all of just those circles. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control G, and now all of those two lines of circles are grouped. Okay, so now we don't have to worry about anything, circles getting out of alignment, whatever. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, you can either copy paste, duplicate, hold down your Alt key and your your left click. You want to create a duplicate copy of these two. Okay, so if duplicate, you can hit duplicate, or my shortcut is, I believe, Control D. Yes, Control D. Oops, you got to have it selected first though. Control D. Okay, so that's my duplicate copy. Now what I want to do is I want to flip this. So I'm going to go into Object, Mirror. I want to flip it vertically. Okay, so vertically is flipping it up and down. Horizontally would be flipping it right to left or left to right. Okay, so I want to flip that vertically. So now what I want to do is position this, and now I've created one side of the design. Okay, so now while that's selected, I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and I'm going to select the other piece, and now I'm going to group those. Okay, so now if I do select this, it's selecting all 4 bars. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Control D, and I'm going to create another duplicate, and I'm going to bring it over to the side here. I am going to, first thing I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm kind of a stickler for making sure things are aligned. So I want to make sure this is level with this side. Okay, we could eyeball it, or we can select the two pieces, and just by hitting Shift, both of these pieces are selected. And actually, I wasn't finished with this one. Now I'm going to make sure this piece on the left comes down and is aligned with the piece on the right. Okay, so I'm taking this piece and I want to move it down. So I'm aligning to the bottom. Okay, so that one moved, so now they're perfectly aligned. Now I'm going to select this piece. I'm going to go into my Object, Mirror, and I'm going to flip it horizontal. And now I'm going to use my arrow keys. If you hold down your arrow key, it will do it multiple times. You hold it down too, it just do little increments, because it sometimes if you hold it down too long, it just keeps going and going and going. But that's a fast way, instead of just sitting and hitting your arrow keys. So I am going to move this a little bit. I'm going to zoom in, make sure my spacing is, so this side of the circle is a little bit different, and it just could be this due to the placement of the circles around the outer ring. But as you can see, the spacing is going to be maybe a little bit different, and maybe not. But if it was, see the spacing is tighter here, and then it kind of gets farther and farther away here. So what I would probably do here is, and like I said, it has to do with um, to where these are positioned against the yellow, the green circles. Okay, if these are not exactly the same on either side, let's see here. This one doesn't match exactly this one. Then it's going to throw off your spacing here. So what you can do is, let's move over a little bit, back over here. I am going to, okay, so what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to ungroup this, I'm going to change it to a different color right now, make it brown. Nothing else in my page is brown, so I'm selecting another color. Now I'm going to ungroup this, so I'm going to hit Control Shift G. Basically, it goes back to these two pieces being grouped and these two pieces being grouped. So now what I want to do is I want to ungroup them we could try to move. We might be able to do this. Probably could do that. But now these two pieces, if I move these two over, this is in the right spot, but only this piece needs to be moved over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select to ungroup those. And now what I need to do is go over to here and make sure all of these circles are selected, and I'm going to just take that row and move it over a little bit. Okay, so now visually the spacing is about the same on either side. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to group all of these back together again so I can move things around and not have them lag or circles to get out of alignment. So I'm going to do my fill by color, and I'm going to hit Control G and groups them back all together. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to select this, I'm going to hit Control Duplicate, gives me another copy. Now I am going to flip this. Now we're going to use our, let's see what panel here. Transform panel, still this one, but I'm going to hit this second option here where it's rotate. And I want to rotate this 90 degrees, okay? I want it to do where it flips it to makes it stand up, okay? So while it's selected, I'm going to select that so it goes like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to position this like this. I'm going to look at my spacing here. I might have to do a little bit of adjusting. Oops. Okay, so I did not group those two when I made the duplicate, so now just these orange ones are all grouped, so now I can bring, I don't know why this isn't, oh there we go, I was hitting the wrong button. Okay, so now I can bring those down, and then I can go to my bottom group, and I can select those, and I can bring these down. But see, now the spacing here is a little too much, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to ungroup these. I'm going to, now let's see, well, you know what, I am going to change these to a different color just in case. I'm going to do a real light blue just in case I want to regroup them back again. Control Shift G. Okay, so I believe these are grouped. Those are ungrouped, and these are ungrouped. So I can do those, and I can move these up a little bit. And I can select these and move those up a little bit. If you happen to like accidentally include like, you know, another circle, all you have to do is when you're so if I would have accidentally included, say, these two circles here, and I started moving them, you know, or actually just and started moving one of the circles, so just hit your undo, get it back into position, and then as long as you hit your shift key and you select that green circle, it will deselect it. Okay, so okay, so now I have that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my design behind it, because I'm pretty much done. Okay, so now I'm going to select design behind it, and I want to move that out of the way. And then I am going to double check to make sure everything is centered. Again, I am a stickler for having things said centered. Now I did notice when I pulled this away, now the ends of these are not as curved, okay? And what you can do, and if that's not what you liked, and we could have checked that when we first made the first two. See, this one is actually kind of curved out a little bit more. As the center one goes out, it creates more of a curve. So for me, it basically, this one and this one, so these are identical, and then these two are identical. For me, it would bother me, okay? So what I would do is I would actually, let's see what to do first. I have groups here. So what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to select that. And I'm going to group these back together. Control G. So that's that. And I'm going to group these together. Control G. Okay. And what I'm going to do first, I think, is check to make sure things are kind of lined up properly here. So I'm going to go into here. There is I want my show grid. Okay, I want my grid lines to show. Okay, so if you don't, if your page was all white and you want your grids back on, you go into your page setup and then second option and select show grid. Okay, so I don't need this box anymore. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a center point for my design, which the center point is where this little box here at the top and the box on the side intersect. Okay, so I want them to be on a line that intersects. That's your center point. So I try to pick the dark lines. So I position this one on a dark line, and I'm going to position this one on a dark line. And this is my center point, okay? So everything will be centered off of this center point right here. So if I were to select this circle here, this square and the square should be on those same exact lines. So I know that this is centered, okay? If I select this piece, hit shift, select this piece, these lines should be on that center line point, and that box and that line, the box for that line should be on that center line. So those are centered. I select this piece, this box, sometimes zooming in a little bit. See, the box is a little off, so I would nudge this over a little bit. Doesn't look like it's moving. There we go. And make sure that that is on the line, and probably move it up just a little bit. Okay, so that particular, and sometimes when you really zoom in, you get a better idea also. But obviously you would have to zoom out to see the upper lines, but you can see those are spot on, okay? If I select this piece and this piece, you would have to go, yeah. See, it's off a little bit. Visually, it looked like it was right on point when it was zoomed out, but see, you can move it. But that hairline is not going to make or break sometimes. Now I can see these are a little bit too close too. So, like I said, I spend a lot of time doing this kind of stuff to visually make things look the way they're supposed to look. I pay a great deal of time attention to detail, and that's just the way I am, okay? You know, some people don't. They want to say, okay, looks fine, looks good enough, we'll call it complete. These things kind of bother me, and I wouldn't like that, to see that spacing there. So I would probably ungroup. I'm going to ungroup. Ungroup. And I would probably take this row and move it out just a little bit. Okay. So the next thing we have to fix is I want this to look the same as this, okay? And to do that, since I've already ungrouped this row, I can take these 3 stones, and I want the pitch to be about the same, okay? So what I'm going to do is I am going to change these 3 stones. I'm going to group them, because I don't want them to move. Take these 3 stones, and I'm going to place those 2 on top of those 2 stones. So this will show me how far out this stone needs to be moved, okay? So you can put, I can send to back, so those are hidden, okay? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this stone, and I'm just going to start nudging it over to where it's about the same as that, okay? So now, I'm going to click, oops, no, I didn't want to do that. Undo that. Now, the yellow never showed up so far. It hasn't. Sometimes this delays this fill by color. When you just change something, the color doesn't show up all the way. So I may have to select my brown again, and I might have to send that to the back. Okay, so now I can select these three. So this is going to be my template, so I'm going to want to move these around. So and before I move on to the next one, I need to fix the spacing. So I need to come in here, select all these. I need to go to my this panel's already up, my transformation panel, or transform panel, sorry, and respace these horizontally. Okay, so now same thing, we could do this. So if I leave this on top, might be a better option to leave this on top so it's easier to select these yellow circles when I gotta move them. So I can do this. Okay, that's hidden. Move this. Zoom out. Select these circles. Redo them. Okay, so now all of those look the same. So now, had we done that from the beginning, then when we copied these, all of them would have been exactly the same. But now, since I didn't do that, now unfortunately I have to go around and fix all of them. Okay, so you live and you learn. You know, you learn to do different things, and you know, it makes you stop and think, okay, next time I want to do this, I want to make sure that the piece that I'm duplicating is exactly the way that I want it to look. Because if not, every single piece that I duplicate is going to have to be fixed if I decide to change it. Okay, so I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it, mirror it horizontally. Those two up. Actually, I'm going to do this. Okay, I have to ungroup this, so I have to Shift Control G, and we have to, since we've grouped it a few different ways, I have to keep ungrouping it until I can get individual circles. Move this. See, I held it down too long and it continually moves then. Okay. I'm going to do this one. Control Shift G. Okay, I've got individual circles here. Now we can grab these. Horizontally respace, horizontally respace. Okay, and this is my one I'm going to use. The yellow one is behind this one, so I'm going to have to select my orange circles and bring them, right click, send to back. So I can delete this. Now I have to still have to do the top and bottom ones. So I'm going to zoom out here. And remember this one, we had to rotate it 90 degrees. That was this rotation. Now I want it to rotate to the left, so I want to make sure I do it this way, because you can rotate to the right and rotate to the left, so it goes that way. I place these match them up with that. circles. I could do this. You can also do this. Shift this, move two up at the same time. If they're not perfectly in line, then you can, tweak them when they get there. Okay, so that worked out. That was a faster way to do that. And I'm going to select all these, and I am going to go back to this panel. I want to respace vertically. Select all these. Select vertically. Okay, so now I could select these. I can bring them down here. I can keep these. I can select object, mirror. I want to flip them vertically. Okay. Now I could try to position these like this. If I've done any adjusting, see these lined up, but these ones didn't, so just tweak these a little bit. Take this, we have to ungroup, Shift Control G. Those are individual circles, but these are not yet, so I have to select this piece, Control G, move these down, okay, and zoom out, select these, respace them vertically. Now I am done, so I do not need those anymore. So now, what I should have done, I should have actually made a copy of it so we could compare the two designs. But as you can kind of see, now it's got more of a shape on it that mimics our original design. The other one just kind of looked a little too flat. Okay. So now what I can do is I can go in and I'm going to change it to red, I think. So now I can go in and change, since this was going to be a solid color design, I can go in and change it all to one color. And now let's compare it to see the way it looks compared to the version that Silhouette would have given us. These are all grouped still. So if I change that to red, and it didn't change because, I don't think it changed because the stones weren't released on these yet either, so that's probably, I gotta release the stones. It's taking a little bit to do. This, I change it all to red to match the other one so you can compare apples to apples. And I like to put a black box around it because, again, when you put designs, I'm going to get rid of this box. I'm going to get rid of these boxes. When you put designs on black backgrounds, black shirts, black backgrounds, it showcases more of the design. It draws your eyes to the design and not the background. Okay, and like I said, that's the reason I don't prefer to put my designs on light colored shirts, white shirts, anything like that, because I feel like your eyes are drawn to the shirt color versus the design and it mutes it. If you put it on black or a darker shirt color, if you're going to use gray, use a darker color gray. It showcases more of the design itself. Okay, so I'm going to take a black square here. I'm going to draw a circle, or I'm sorry, a square. Change it to black. Right click. I'm going to send it to the back. Okay, so these are my two designs. I have been able to, by manually creating this design, I was able to keep that spacing between to make each one of those individual lines that shot off from the circle on the inside. I was able to define those, where over here you can see it's kind of just all run together. That circle looks more clean, I guess you want to call it. Here, you know, yes, it did maintain the middle of the circle, but beyond that, it just kind of morphed, you know, everything together. You know what I mean? So it didn't really make it look clean, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. Because you can see, you know, you want to kind of try to maintain that circular line in the spacing between the lines that come off of the circle. So, but you know, I promise you it wouldn't take as long as it took me to create this, because obviously I was showing you different steps and I was explaining things and stuff like that. But really, realistically, you could knock this design off in probably a matter of, I don't know, maybe about 10 minutes. I think honestly, it probably took me about 10 minutes to do this design, just because I was able to break it down. I basically, all I stoned was a circle and two lines. Once you got those, you duplicate, you know, and you start positioning things. Had I, like I said, had I taken the time to made sure this end circle or line matched the one over here, then I wouldn't have had to have gone back to do exactly what I had, you know, respace and fix all those. But because I didn't proof that and make sure that that looked the way I wanted it to, I had to make that correction. And actually, I forgot to respace these, so I just noticed that. So I have to select. Oops. I have to select this row right here, and I have to do my horizontal respacing. Let's see what I do. There we go. Okay. So, like I said, I am a stickler. If something stands out, and when you put your black box, or you put your black box around your design, and if your eyes are drawn to a certain area, like my eyes were drawn to that space, and that's how I caught it. I didn't catch it when it was against this kind of a background, okay? But it showed up, that spacing showed up more, and you know, after you zoom in too, and my eyes were drawn to that spacing, I knew I had to correct that area. So if your eyes are drawn to a specific area of your design, chances are you need to fix that area, because you want to visually look at this design and say everything looks all the same. Spacing is the same, lines are straight, you know, that kind of thing. You want it to look as perfect as you possibly can get it to look, okay? That's what's going to keep your customers coming back. And, you know, if you pay attention to those types of details. So, I hope this tutorial is helpful, and I do plan on, making more videos regarding different functions and features that you can use in your program, and how to break down designs. So when I start coming across designs that I can break down and I can show you how to do it, and you don't necessarily have to use the rhinestone feature if you're not getting the results. Or I might be able to show you videos that using of the rhinestone feature, but and how to clean up the designs to make them look more the way they're supposed to, instead of just taking the results that the program gives you and saying, oh, what do I do with this now? So I'm going to make more of those types of videos, and hopefully, it will help you guys learn. And then you just, you have to know when to start applying these different things to yourself, because, unfortunately, one video is not going to tell you how to make every rhinestone design you're ever going to want to make. We have to learn to train our eyes to break them down, to see what we can do, what our programs can do for us, what we manually have to do ourselves. And that's just something that's you will teach yourself how to do the more you make your designs. I've been doing this for over 15 years, and I tell you, the way I make my designs now is not how I started out making them. So I learned different things along the way, and it's all about you just learning things along the way too. And hopefully the tips that I give you, you can apply to the way you make your designs. So thanks for watching, and if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button too. That way you'll get notified when I release any new videos. So thanks for watching.